Kevin's presentation recalled me to the time when I was a graduate student and I went and auditioned for Jeopardy. I think at the same studios there on Beverly Boulevard, but I won't go into that story. Anyway, I'm an English professor at Emory University. The reason primarily I think I'm here is because of this book with that blunt title. And actually I should say afterwards, if people want to discuss it, talk about the issues, I'll be signing books outside and chatting for people who have comments. Now, the talk here really is, it's not really an inspiration, it's more a warning. And a focus on one particular element of the digital age that stands apart from all of the miracles and wonders, the advances in medicine and logistics and communication and everything else that digital tools have brought about, but that this one is, I contend, a damaging one. And the fundamental contention is that the tools, the cell phones, the laptop, and everything else, in the hands of teenagers mostly, but also 20-year-olds, proves to have ultimately, overall, a damaging intellectual effect. A damaging intellectual effect on the lives of the young. That's the assertion. And so I'm just going to lay out for you what is the basis for that supposition and offer that data and see what you think, and hope that you reflect upon that and see about whether this calls for an adjustment of habits, particularly your out-of-school, leisure, social habits. So, to begin, let's just give a couple of charts on the numbers, on digital activity. The numbers are small. I hope you can see them, but this is a study from Kaiser Foundation that follows media in the lives of the young. And you can see over three periods, 99, 04, 09, the amount of media that teenagers consume in an average day. The total media use, we're up to nearly 8 hours. That includes TV, laptop, surfing the web, radio, video games, and everything else. A huge amount of media consumption, significantly upward from 1999, and of course, vastly upward from previous generations. Next one is items in the bedroom. If you look at the comparisons here, you see the percentage of youths, teenagers, with TV, CD, DVD, computer, and video game in the bedroom. And comparing it to earlier generations, what we see is that the bedroom is becoming more and more a mass media space. It is not a place of seclusion, of quiet, of privacy. It is, in fact, more and more a place in which the young can communicate with the rest of the world. In fact, you can go in, shut the door, tune out the rest of the household, and open up to the world and all the streams that are coming back and forth. Okay. This here is just a chart of texting. Number of texts per month, calculated from 07 up to 2010. And you see here the red line is texting by teenagers. Teenagers who have a mobile device now are up to 3,500 text messages sending and receiving per month. Okay, more than well over 100 per day. They also, with that cell phone, conduct still about 225 cell phone calls per month. Now these numbers just show the proliferation of media, of time spent, of leisure hours filled up more and more by the tools. And what are the tools primarily for teenagers? When they ask teenagers, well, what is your cell phone for? What is your computer for? Those tools are a window onto the great world of history, politics, geography, old maps, government documents, the window onto the universe of knowledge. But that is not what they mean primarily to teenagers. Instead, they are a window onto one another. The most popular answer by far is, why do you have a cell phone? To keep up with my friends. The social function is what stands out the most. Okay? And it leads to what some researchers call a hypersocial lives. Social media produces hypersocial lives among the young. They communicate with one another more and more than ever before. And the remarkable thing is they are reading and writing, speaking and hearing more words than ever before. More language activity is happening for your generation than any generation in human history. If you simply count up the tweets and the text messages and the emails and the phone calls and the web pages and the Facebook and so on, it is an extraordinarily full communications life. Okay? Now, we've got that side of word processing activity happening. What do we see, though, in other areas in which word processing of various kinds is examined, is measured? There, a strange discrepancy sets in. All of the words being exchanged socially is not producing academically improved word processing. Just some quick statistics here. This is reading scores for 12th graders from the national NAEP, it's called the Nation's Report Card, U.S. Department of Education. If you look, we have here pretty much a flat line since the early 70s, and actually a drop since the early 90s. Wait a minute, they're reading more and more than ever before. Why do we see reading scores not improving, especially all the money that has gone in? Next, sorry for the small numbers, but SAT reading scores. See the last one in 2012, 496, the lowest ever reading score. Okay. Writing scores, the SAT added a writing component. They decided in 2005, started in 2006. Every single year, scores have gone down with 1 year of flat. Okay. Writing scores are worse, but they're writing so much. Why is this happening? You could look at other measures too. The rates of students who go to college and have to be put in remedial writing courses keeps going up. Businesses in corporate America, in state governments, keep reporting they're having to hire in-house writing tutors for younger workers. Corporate America spends $3.1 billion a year on writing instruction for younger employees. Okay? Doesn't make sense unless we factor in the social element. Okay? The social element. I'll get to the slide in a moment. Here's what we have to keep in mind. When we see how more and more word exchange doesn't yield better academic and workplace language skills, we have to factor in the social element. Why don't we see the intellectual progress? Okay? Why don't we see it? Because of the social element to it. Who are 17-year-olds writing to? What are they reading? The communications to and from other 17-year-olds. Okay? This is the social element here. They are not writing to adults, grown-up, people much older than themselves. They are writing to and for one another. They are writing about the concerns in their social lives. As a result, they are orienting their communications more and more toward other people their own age. This is what I mean by the age segregation process that the tools have allowed. In the old days, before these digital tools came along, a 17-year-old in the bedroom could not communicate with a 17-year-old or many 17-year-olds anywhere else. You cross the front door, when I was 15, I went home, crossed the front door, social life was effectively over. There was what's now called the landline. It was in the kitchen. I wasn't going to sit there and talk actually, I wasn't going to talk to friends who I hung out with that afternoon and contact them later. It wouldn't make sense to me. Okay? Didn't have a phone in the bedroom. When I was a teenager in the 70s, I remember a couple people got phones in the bedroom. That was a special thing. It was new. Okay? But I didn't have any active social contact once I went home. It was over until the next morning. I thought about social things, but I didn't have any active way to make something happen socially. Okay? Now, you go up into the bedroom, you can conduct your social life at 11 o'clock at night. You can be on Highway 40, all the way out in the middle of New Mexico, in the back seat of your parents' car, and conduct a social life. There is no more limit in time or space to communications with peers. Okay? What this means is we have produced a gross imbalance in the intellectual lives of teenagers. The imbalance is the peer component, the social component, has become so heavy in their lives that it is crowding out communications with adults. Reading material on adult matters. There is only so much time in the day. Okay? It is a limited zero-sum game. More of this means less of this. Okay? More and more teenagers are enwrapped in an all-youth, all-teen, all-social sphere all the time. Even when they're not online, they know messages are coming in. Even when their phone is downcharged or is being charged and they're off, text messages are still coming in. They still think about it. They leave my class after an hour. First thing they do, get out the door, go out on the quad between classes. How many people are like this? They've got to check in. They don't have joy on their faces. It's a bit of consternation, uncertainty. Where do I stand? What is going on? Do I have a message that is critical in some way? I don't know. Now, what's wrong with this? Okay, what's wrong with this? And here's the larger assumption that gets us to this issue. Okay? IQ scores have gone up during the 20th century. Okay? A score of 100 in 1947-48, okay, or someone who scored 100 would have gone up to above 115 now. They keep having to re-norm it higher and higher to get to that average 100 score. People are getting smarter. This is for children, this is for adults. Okay? We see gains. Now, they measure IQ in different ways. Spatial reasoning, pattern recognition, and also language, vocabulary. Now, the big issue, I'm going to jump ahead one and come back. When we look at vocabulary gain, we see adults going up much faster than children. Okay? The vocabulary gain for children, the language gain for youths, has been much slower than it has been for adults. And this doesn't make sense to researchers because most children get their vocabulary, their language from parents, contact with parents. Okay? Here is the explanation for why it hasn't correlated, parents and child. This is from psychologist James Flynn, who first really laid out this rising IQ score. Between 1972 and 2002, U.S. school children made no gain in their store of general information and only minimal vocabulary gains. Today's children may learn to master basic reading skills, but are no better prepared for reading more demanding adult literature. Okay? And Flynn's explanation was because youths are more and more communicating with one another, they're not communicating with adults so much, precisely because of this expanding social sphere. If they were communicating more with adults, they would find they would have to raise their vocabulary level. They couldn't speak in the youth idiom. They couldn't immerse themselves in youth culture. Youth culture, which is, and here is my cultural judgment of youth culture, it is anti-intellectual, anti-historical, and anti-eloquence. That's what I find peer pressure is oriented around. And so that when the digital tools put kids more and more in touch with one another, the age segregation actually blunts the intellectual progress in vocabulary, in reading, and in writing. And that if, and this is I close with the final advice, that is, if you find your life becoming so enmeshed in the concerns of your friends, it's time to start setting limits. It's time to cut down on the communications at night. Time to spend a little fewer hours on Facebook each week. Not so many text messages, more communications with adults, more interaction with people much older than yourselves. Okay? This is the contention, and that if you do this, you will find your intellectual progress proceeding more quickly. That is not, again, not a happy message. There are comforts to friends, comforts with being around like-minded people, but what Kevin ended with, you've got to get out of that comfort zone. You've got to relate to people 20 years older than yourself. You have to have more communications with other materials than just youth-oriented materials. I will stop there and let us proceed toward our break. Thank you.